Hello, welcome to the Meeple Syrup Show, where designers discuss board game design. And we're already on episode 15, and we have our second publisher roundtable. We have both, which was scheduled before, and I screwed up the scheduling, but Gamelyn Games, we finally got them on the show. I'm really excited about that with Michael Coe. And we have Frand DiLorenzo with R&R Games. But before we go there, I got to introduce one of our favorite co-hosts is back, the other Bamboozle brother, Jay Cormier.
Hello! Hey, what do you mean one of?
Well, you are one of the Bamboozle brothers, but you're also one of my favorite co-hosts.
Yay!
How do you choose one Bamboozle brother over another?
You can't.
We're sort of joined at the virtual hip, so it's okay.
So on that note, Jay, why don't you tell us, because we haven't seen you for a few weeks. At all. I mean, I don't talk to you except for when you're on the show. What? That's a lie. But what games have you been playing? Any prototypes or any published games? What have you been enjoying?
Yeah, I played Vikings this past week. It's recently got reprinted, but I have an older version, and played it with a bunch of people I hadn't played it before, and they all loved it, so that was really exciting. It's one of my faves. I like that game a lot. I like the mechanic, how the spindle goes around and slowly lowers the price of everything. So you can pay a lot at the beginning for something you really want, or try to kind of push your luck, I guess, and wait and see if it'll get lower in price. So that was pretty exciting. And then also played Among the Stars.
I've been wanting to try that.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Yeah, it was really cool. I'm curious about replayability. Because I wish they had a little bit of more interesting mix-up of cards, like a scale, like what Seven Wonders has age 1, age 2, age 3, and so cards get better and better and bigger and more expensive, etc. All cards are just shuffled in, so that's one part I'm curious about. But the first, we actually played 2 times in a row, and they were both entertaining.
Did you play the base game, or did you have any of the expansions?
Yeah, we played one of each.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Sen? What have you been playing?
Oh, I had the privilege of going over to Lion Rampant to play a bunch of board games to test for their acquisitions. So it was fun. Played a bunch of games from France and Poland. From Capsium Games in France, I played Fleet Commander, which is about a 1-hour skirmish game set in space. It has this really, really cool dice mechanic and kind of those little twisty bases where you can count down how many hit points you have. So it was a really, really, really neat dice-driven skirmish mechanics that started off very strange, like how does this play, and then ended up being very, very intuitive by the end of it. The only thing I would say is that there's not a lot of variance in your fleet, your ship types, and so that was kind of the thing that I was missing from there. And then I played what is apparently the #1 family game from this one company in Poland, G3, and it's 7 days in Wopsplat or something like that, Wolfsplat. When you look at the title, it looks like some kind of...
Isn't that an older game, actually?
It might be. I don't know. It's a cooperative game set in Poland. It's a Polish company, and you're basically repelling German attack. And it's actually, once we got through the rules, and I think we did it okay, it actually is a pretty decent sort of cooperative tower defense type game almost. So it was kind of fun. So that's just a really interesting thing, doing reviews, or not reviews, but playing games for a company that's thinking of acquiring already published games to bring over to North America as a distributor, and the questions that they ask from the distribution side versus the design side and all that kind of thing. So it was really kind of neat. How about you, Daryl? What have you been playing lately?
I've been spoiled. I've spent a lot of quality game time. I've been at 2 local game cafes this week. I hung out at the Adventurers Guild, and I hung out at Crossroads, which is our newest game cafe. So I played, I'm trying to think of all the games, I wrote them down. Splendor, Camel Up, played a bunch of those. One game that I fell in love with, and we played a whole bunch of times, is Koryo, like Koryo.
Oh yeah, Koryo, yeah.
Oh, that game is so clever, like really elegant design. So I think a Korean designer. if I'm right. I played Key Harvest. I played uh, a bunch of games, and then tonight I actually was hanging out at the Games Institute at the University of Waterloo, and we play tested a racing car game that was a deck builder, and really fun. Yeah, so I'm really excited about where that might go. But it was an honor, and it was fun to get to play test and prototype that. So, but with that, why don't we jump right into welcoming our guests onto the show? We have Michael Coe and Frand DiLorenzo representing Gamelyn Games and R&R Games. I'm sure most of our viewers know them, but if they don't know of their games and their company, they will by the end of the show. The beauty of these guests is not only are they publishers, which we have a lot of things we want to learn from publishers, what their perspective is for designers, but they're also both designers, so they can talk about the full spectrum of being game designers, but also publishers, and what those different hats look like, and even other roles within that. So why don't I send to Jay? Jay, you got our first question from Michael.
Yeah, okay, so Michael, so just to get to know you a bit better, can you tell us a bit about the kind of games you like, and then, like, that you personally like to play, and then how does that impact your decision on what kind of games you like to publish?
Sure. I like games across the entire spectrum. Lately, I've been on a little bit of a dexterity game kind of kick, but if I were to say my general favorite, at least one of my more preferred mechanics is a tile-laying mechanic. I like games that explore high luck, high strategy. So Carcassonne really does it for me. I'm a huge fan. I've got every single expansion. I can't wait till the Winter Edition comes out on my iPad. I've been playing it a whole bunch on there. But yeah, so that did play some into when I started designing games. Rise, my first one, is a tile-laying game. Dungeon Heroes is tile-laying. Fantasy Frontier is tile-laying, and so I think just through that alone, it spoke to I love, that's one of my favorite mechanics. So
I'm with you, brother. I love tile-laying.
Frank, how about you? What games have you been playing lately?
Oh, I've been playing, not much of anything, really.
Well, what do you like playing?
I like a lot of different things. I love Werewolf, obviously. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But, I guess we've been playing a lot of Ted Alspach's Mad King Ludwig, Castles Mesh.
Sure.
Love that game.
Yeah. I play a lot of 5 games. I play a lot of T2.
T2.
Excellent, excellent. So, Daryl, where are we going to go with the questions this week, buddy?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're going to start the conversation thinking and asking more from the publisher's perspective, because we said this is the Publisher Roundtable number 2. So for the first bit, we're going to talk more about from the publisher's perspective. But after that, I'm sure our conversation will dabble into design, and we'll be able to pick both Michael and Frank's brains on not only their experience designing games as a designer, but also developing games, because that is a major role that I know both of you as publishers do, is you refine and make games even better. So let's start, though, talking from the publisher perspective, and maybe just so that everyone gets to know both respective companies, I'll start with Michael. Tell us a little bit about just the quick history. Give us the quick version of how did Gamelyn start?
Sure. So Gamelyn Games started off a couple years ago with a small little title, Dungeon Heroes, that I briefly mentioned a bit ago. So we started there, then expanded into Fantasy Frontier, and then into kind of some accessory products, the fantasy gaming figures, which is kind of just an all-purpose laser cut figure for tabletop gaming of all sorts. And then we really kind of came into our own with the Tiny Epic series, and I'd say that that's really gotten the Gamelyn Games name out there a little bit. So Tiny Epic Kingdoms, and then followed up by Tiny Epic Defenders, and here we are coming up soon in January, Tiny Epic Galaxies on Kickstarter. So we're growing quick, and yeah, just having a great time with it too.
That's awesome. We'll come back and probably dig a little deeper onto your expertise on running a Kickstarter campaign in a minute. I'm going to jump over to Frank. And Frank, I'm actually not familiar with the history with how long you've been with R&R and when did it start compared to when you started. And can you tell us a bit about that journey?
Well, I founded the company.
That makes sense then. So you've been with it from the beginning. So I didn't even know that actually. So that's great.
It actually was based on one game that I decided I wanted to have published, and I couldn't get it published, so I said I'll publish it myself. And
Your own game.
My own game, yeah. It was,
What was it?
Riddles and Riches.
Oh.
Yeah. And it was a treasure hunt game. So we published that. It did pretty well, and we thought, this is fun. Let's keep doing it. We just kept bringing out games, and now 18 years later, we have over 50, 60 titles in the line, and we bring on 8 to 10 new games a year, and it's just
wow.
fun.
And what would you say is your biggest hit? Is my favorite game?
Which
Oh,
one?
yeah. Hanabi? But I was going to say, actually,
Time's up.
Time's
Yeah.
Up. I'm like, what?
Time's Up is our number one. That's the one we sold millions of copies of. But in the last couple of years, we've sold a ton of Hanabi. I mean, having won the Spiel des Jahres, that was a huge kick in the pants for that game. Everyone wanted to try it, and once they tried it, they loved it. So,
Wow.
We'll definitely have to chat a little bit more about that.
Yeah, no kidding.
So,
Sen.
Michael, let's talk about Kickstarter just because it's hot pursuit from what Jay was saying. How did Kickstarter help Gamelyn Games become kind of the rolling juggernaut in the Kickstarter world that it is today?
I mean, Kickstarter is everything. It's the bread and butter of my company. Without Kickstarter, I wouldn't be publishing games. So, I mean, it is the key contributor. But Kickstarter, in and of itself, has a very live and organic community that's really fantastic. And so it's been really neat to grow with that community and just kind of slowly build up a snowball of, trying to, I work real hard to improve each project and improve the backer experience. And it's neat to kind of have seen certain members of that Kickstarter community follow my company and grow with me. It's really exciting.
Excellent. Daryl, you have a question for Frank?
Well, I mean, right off the bat, my first thought is let's contrast that. I know R&R does not kickstart,
Right.
so let's go into that conversation. Why do you use a different model? Why don't you kickstart?
we're not really needing to use Kickstarter to publish. I mean,
Yep.
basically can publish what we want when we want.
Yep.
And that's what we try to do. We try to pick the best games that we can find and put them out. But there's no real need for us to kickstart any of it because we're pretty much a self-sufficient company.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, like you said, 18 years.
Yeah. I mean, early on, I would have loved Kickstarter. Oh my God, give it to me. This is great. But no, we did it the old-fashioned way. We raised capital and we started slow and we built it slowly. And we've had 18 years to build up a nice foundation.
That's great. Okay, so we'll do another question too on the Kickstarter just so that we get that out of our system and then we'll leave it in our past. But Michael, could you summarize, 2, 3, 4 like really good things like that you would recommend other people doing a Kickstarter and how to do a great Kickstarter, because you have a good reputation of running a solid Kickstarter campaign every time you go up to bat.
So Kickstarter is really about bringing the people in. It's really about the community. And so in that way, you want to get your game out into people's hands before you ever get up on Kickstarter. And so something that's really been a big contributor to my success with that is the print and plays that I offer.
Right.
Some people, I've had discussions back and forth with other publishers about, well, if you're giving away the game for free, does that mean they're not going to come and back it because they can just have it for free and people can make their own fancy version? And truth be told, I've found the contrary to be true, where by giving the game away, it really has brought it all back, and people then fall in love with the game and share it with their friends, and their friends coming back the game. And so I'd say that's my number one advice: is don't hide your game, get it out there, get it out to the people. Second, take some time off work, man. If you're going to run a Kickstarter, prepare yourself to be a part of the community. That's what people are going on to Kickstarter looking for, is that tangibility to the publisher. And so you need to be available, reading the comments, answering the emails, responding to the comments, and just always being present, you know. And I'd say probably one of the biggest pieces of advice that I would give to a new Kickstarter creator, and this one is so sometimes you get those what we call trolls or whatever that'll go on there, and they'll, you kind of know that they're purposely kind of pulling on your chain just to see what kind of reaction you're going to do, or they're hitting it, they're just asking the tough questions, right? And some people choose, oh well, I'm not going to feed the trolls per se, and I'm just going to ignore those questions. And I say you got to do the opposite of that. I think that really when somebody poses a tough question, or really when somebody kind of tests you like that, you got to see that as an opportunity, and you got to say, thanks for giving me this chance to show everybody how I feel and how I can react to this. Because to win the heart of the 99, it's about how you treat the one. Because ultimately, the way you treat that one demonstrates how you feel about the 99, because we're all just ultimately a one as well. So you got to take those moments as opportunities and really show how you feel about your customers.
That's awesome. That's a great highlight of the 3 things to focus on. I love it. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah. And so, Frank, how would you contrast that with R&R's model? How do you engage with your game buying public?
That's how do we engage with our game buying public?
How do you get people excited about your games?
Well, it's a question of really getting it out to the people who spread the word. We go to a lot of conventions.
Mm-hmm.
We sell directly to the public there to get it into their hands. We do a lot of contests at those. We do a lot of promotions. And we basically get these games in the hands of the gamers who are going to talk about it. And they spread it. They're the ones who basically say, oh, this game is great, you got to try it. And it just spreads like wildfire from there.
Excellent.
Yeah, you've been blessed with great games, it's a good thing to have.
Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna use that actually as an excuse to transition, because talking conventions, I know Michael also is. I've seen photos of you at different conventions. So tell us a little bit about how do you use conventions? How do you connect with the greater industry? With Gamelyn being a newer game company, like how do you get in? How do you get your foot in the door?
Conventions are such a huge part of that. It's really a great opportunity for you to get together with the movers and the shakers of the industry. Like Frank was saying, you get it in front of the people that matter. You get it in front of the people that spread the word, and those are, quote-unquote, your alpha gamers. And typically it is those kind of gamers that are wanting to put the time and attention and money that it costs to go to a convention. So the people that typically show up at these conventions are very dedicated fans of the industry, and they love games. That's why they're there. And so if you can put a game in front of them that they can fall in love with, that's worth $1 million. I mean, that's huge to go to these shows. I do about 7 or 8 shows a year, and I'm looking to pick up more. And I live by them. The shows are super important.
Wow. Frank, on contrast, I know you do a ton of conventions. How many do you do in a year, would you say?
I've lost track. Myself alone, I've been to, I don't know, at least 15 this year.
Yeah, wow.
And we have more that we have other people that we send to attend those. We're spreading that even farther next year. It's just there's a lot of conventions, and we like to hit a lot of them. So.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So sticking to this idea of conventions and talking kind of about what some of our listeners want to hear more about with regards to a lot of them being designers, and now we have some publishers talking to you. What percentage of designers approach you or even set up a meeting in advance, Frank, at conventions to show you their stuff? And is that the best way, in your experience, for designers to get their stuff seen by you?
It's not the only way. It's a good way because they'll get a quick answer because they can often make a decision on the spot. And one thing I'm known for is buying games on the spot.
Really?
It's true.
I bought 10 games at the Toy Fair last year. I bought a couple games at a couple other conventions, and I think I also bought one at Gen Con.
You did. It was a good Gen Con.
And whose game was that?
I don't remember the designer of that game, but, very interesting game. So.
Yeah.
And so what tips would you have for a designer coming up to you at a convention to try to pitch to you?
First of all, if it's a certain type of convention like the Toy Fair, you have to make an appointment. If you don't make an appointment, you will never get to see me. If it's a more casual convention, then I'll have set hours where I'll say, oh, this is when I want to see games. And if it's a convention like Gen Con, you have to really be lucky because I don't have a lot of time at conventions like Gen Con, Origins, that kind of thing. I just get, we get inundated with people buying games and wanting to play games and demo games, and I don't have time to really see a lot of new stuff at those. Is it possible? Absolutely. I mean, Daryl can tell you all about that.
Well, I have to follow up on that. I can attest to how busy the R&R booth was at Gen Con. It was swamped. I don't think I ever saw Frank or Dan ever sit. There was like people lining up to talk to them while sales are going on. They're reaching over people, passing games, all that. So it was chaotic.
That's awesome.
Thankfully, I had arranged, like Frank said, ahead of time, and we squeezed it in. And even with trying to talk and stuff, I mean, I had to be flexible. I knew they were busy, and I changed my schedule around to make sure that I was available to show them because I thought it was a good fit.
Did it pay off, Daryl?
Well, I'm very excited about Caffeine Rush coming out, so people will have to stay tuned for that. It's one of my favorite games, so it's a speed.
Actually on the production line right now.
Hey, so very excited about that. But I would really echo what Frank's saying about scheduling ahead of time, trying to establish even when the right times are. So Gen Con worked out just a circumstance with that game, but Gen Con's probably not the best time to show most publishers. The other conventions are probably a little better for finding the time to be able to talk. And
I can tell you for sure the best time for us has always been things like the Toy Fair and casual, smaller type conventions.
Absolutely.
So what about you, Michael? How do people get in touch with you specifically?
So primarily through emails. I've had a couple come up to me at each different show. I mean, the bigger ones like Origins. I mean, I say bigger, but and just like you guys were saying, it's about timing and stuff too. I worked in the restaurant business as a manager for quite a while, and it's the funniest thing when it's Friday night at 6 o'clock and somebody's calling saying, are you guys hiring? And it's like, are you kidding me? If you knew anything about this business, right now is the worst time to be like that. Just alone means you're disqualified, right? So, that was quick and easy, and so that's the kind of thing when you go up to conventions. If you notice that they're really, really busy, don't just kind of try to poke in. Plan it wisely. Come early in the morning or something. When they're just kind of getting ready to get going, and be prepared, man. I mean, you've made it this far. If you've come all the way to a convention, you've mustered up the courage to go and speak to a publisher. Be prepared with a nice, solid 30-second to 90-second pitch. I mean, understand kind of what people want to hear in that elevator pitch and be ready with it. And then hopefully, that was intriguing enough to maybe set some time aside. But I do primarily get submissions through emails right now. That's to answer that directly.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we got a hold of you, right? We emailed you and we said, hey, would you like to look at this game? And you did, and you liked it, so that was good.
Loved it, as a matter of fact. Loved it.
Well, good.
Right.
And so we've got Rock, Paper, Wizards with Gamelyn from Jay and Josh and me. Oh, look at that. There you go. And
Hold it up again. I missed it.
Yeah, hold it up.
There's not much to see.
No.
I love it.
But hey, that's my handwriting. That's what it looks like.
Wow.
That's
I wrote his name.
That is final art prototype.
Final art, yes.
It's a very simple but elegant design.
Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, just quick, I'm going to jump in here and just remind viewers, anyone that's watching, feel free to send tweets to Meeple Syrup, at Meeple Syrup, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can throw your comments on there. If you have any questions for our guests, we try to incorporate those throughout the show, so don't be shy. here's your opportunity to ask your questions. I know, Jay, actually, you were itching on our little side chat. You had something you quickly wanted to jump in with.
Yeah, so Frank, with R&R Games, my familiarity with it in the past has been things like Time's Up and then now Strike a Pose and these more very social, family, fun party games. And then recently with games like Spike and Colbaron, you're getting into the Euros. Can you take us through what the decision was to move into doing heavy-ish, medium-heavy Euros?
Well, we are known primarily as the kings of party games because we do a lot of party games. We are really prolific with party games. We love party games. But that said, I personally love the strategy games as well. And I finally had time to finish one of my own. That was Masters of Venice, and published that a few years back. And saw it do really well, and I thought, this is great because that means I can publish more of them. So we started looking for more and more. It's actually, to be honest, just a big excuse for me to go to Essen every year. That's all I need, a couple strategy games, I'm there. So, but it's been really good. I really enjoy having those games in the line, and I'm glad that we're growing it. We're adding to that line every year, so I'm very happy with that one.
Oh,
yeah,
Jay, sorry. Jay skipped. Oh, Daryl, you're going to have to go in a second. Go ahead.
Oh, well, sure. I think Sen was actually just showing a screenshot of Masters of Venice, which is a great game. I owned it for a long time, and actually a friend of mine bought it off me, and he bought it off me because he wanted the expansion. He told me afterwards, I had the expansion. Supposedly that's really hard to find. But I want to ask Frank, what is the types of games you mentioned you're looking at Euros, but what is that something special? You know, what's that magic you're looking for? How can you tell when a game is a Frank game, an R&R game?
Well, number one, it's got to be fun. But I really look for something that's easy to explain, quick to play. You'll notice that most of the strategy games, with the exception of Masters of Venice, are primarily they play in an hour. They're not long games, and most of our family games will play in 10 to 20 minutes. And party games you can play as long as you want or as little as you want. So I like to have games that can be in and out as fast as you want. You're going to have as much fun as you want out of it. And it's not going to take forever to explain to your friends how to play the game. So if you come to me with a game that you can explain in 2 minutes, and I think, wow, this is fun, I'm probably going to publish it.
Excellent. So fun is a huge factor for most people, I suspect. Michael, I'm suspecting that fun is a big factor for you, but also most of your games seem to be like in the tiny and epic category. Is that a factor of your particular likes, your design perspectives, or is it a factor of Kickstarter or something else?
Both. It's really a mix of both. I definitely like small games because of Kickstarter. It's just the big part of the Kickstarter, and maybe I'll go off on quite a tangent here, but some people, they'll ask me, well, when does it make sense to stop using Kickstarter? When does it make sense that you don't want to pay the 10%, what they'll I mean, really, it's quite, it's probably 11 or 12% when you consider credit cards that don't go through and things of that sort. But people say, when do you not want to pay that anymore and stop using Kickstarter? And really, you're asking the wrong question, because that 10% is worth the marketing that comes from the organic crowd that lives in the Kickstarter community. So that's really not where it's at. For me, it's the shipping. So, for instance, Tiny Epic Kingdoms, the shipping bill on that was just barely shy of 6 figures. So, if I were in a position like Frank to be able to put a game out and expect for it to have sales equivalent to what Tiny Epic Kingdoms did, and I didn't have to eat that shipping bill, that's when it makes sense for me to stop using Kickstarter, right? Like if I can expect those kind of numbers and yet I can hold on to that extra 6 figures as company revenue and not have to put that into free shipping, then we're there. But until that point, the 10%, that's marketing money. I have no problem with that. And so The shipping plays into why I go with small games, and particularly I try to stay under that 13 ounces. There's a lot that goes into the preparation of that, so that I can really maximize the Kickstarter experience, both for assuring that I can deliver the product, that I've got the money in place to deliver the product, because shipping is where companies go upside down in a lot of scenarios on Kickstarter. It's that part that kills them, and so it's that part that I really concentrate on. And then to kind of take another angle at it is buyer's remorse of Kickstarter. We're in a time now with when games. Obviously, I'm part of it. Games are just being cranking out. Because of the Kickstarter thing. And so what you're seeing is that you'll buy a $50, $70, $100 game. You take it to your game night, and you guys loved it, and you absolutely loved it, and you're like, totally worth it. I'm going to play this game to death, right? And you bring it back next week, and everybody else is like, I just got my Kickstarter game. I just got this Kickstarter game. And so your game doesn't get played because you got to play the new ones. And you're like, well, it's okay, I'll play it next week. Same problem, right? And so every week there's these new games, and then that $100 game is just sitting on a shelf, and though you loved it, you've only gotten to play it once. And so I think that part of that has created a buyer's remorse environment, and if I can stick with a small game, a small price point, then even if you only play it once, there's really nothing, you're not out much, and so therefore you don't have a negative feeling walking away from your Kickstarter experience and towards board games in general.
That's a great viewpoint.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want to piggyback off of, you talked a little bit about shipping costs and all this. I know Frank, for instance, does some printing in North America. We had a pretty heated discussion, actually, our last publisher roundtable about manufacturing and distribution in North America, outsourcing, all that. Hopefully, we won't go to fisticuffs on this topic, but I am curious. Because I know, Frank, you do printing in North America, and we actually had a great conversation about, the cost of production in, say, Germany versus the cost in North America. Why don't you explain a little bit of why you do the way you do it, and so that our viewers, because some kickstart or even go through the manufacturing process themselves, enlighten some people about that, enlighten what it would take to be involved with the whole production and distribution.
That's a big question.
It is a biggie. I left it wide open for you. You know where you want to go with it.
Well, I'll tell you, primarily a lot of our stuff is made in China. We've just recently started producing again in North America. We started in North America. We moved it to China, saved a lot of money that way. But honestly, as the economies are shifting, to be honest, the savings in China aren't as big as they were. Shipping prices overseas slightly higher, but more so, it's really slow to get things from China because it's got to come across the ocean, and inevitably there's a log jam in Long Beach or Seattle, and your stuff is hung up in the port, and it's a real pain. So I started to produce things back here in the States because it's faster. I get it faster. The quality of what I've been printing, I think, is really good in North America now. But that said, it's more expensive, so it's kind of a trade-off. I have to raise the price, but if I can do it for that particular game, I'm going to do it, and I know that the market will bear that with no problem, so we'll go ahead and do that. But will I do everything here in the States? I can't yet because not all the capabilities are in place in the States. I can't do some of the plastic stuff or the electronic stuff in the States as cheaply as I can do overseas. Yep. Even with printing in Germany, we print some stuff in Germany with our partners over there, and unfortunately, that's no faster really. I'm still waiting for the latest shipment of Full Baron to come in, and I wish it was faster because that's the biggest holdback for any of those.
Awesome, interesting. It's always interesting getting the inside viewpoint that we've never had before. So this is great. Michael, let's shift gears and go into talking more about development and the cycle of development. Now, to what degree are you, as the ultimately as the publisher, involved in the development? Do you have a team? Is it just you? And I guess what percentage of the submitted game is the final game that gets published?
So I've got a team, but a lot of the final say kind of comes down to me. But I do have a group of gamers that I put it in front of that I really trust, that I think got a lot of things figured out, real smart guys. And so it goes through that process. But I'll tell you, I'm real adamant about staying and following the designer's passion. There's obviously a lot of passion that the author puts into the design that I don't want to get away from. At the same time, some designs feel like a director's cut movie where every scene just holds a little too long, right? Because the director's in love with his footage, and so
That's a funny analogy.
The guy makes he's like, you can't handle the truth, whatever, and then it just holds. And the director's like, I love it, and everybody else is like bored to tears. And so you'll find that director cut movies are actually quite a bit more boring than the actual movie itself. And that's why you got to put it in front of the editor who doesn't love the footage but understands the dramatic purpose of the footage. And so he'll trim it up, cut it all up, and the director's like, all my stuff's sitting on the floor, and he's like, just sit back and watch the movie, man, it's great, right? And so that's kind of what I do. I come in and I don't want to change it so completely. I want the designer. I really want to channel what the designer was originally going for. So I usually try to tap into the goals and the dramatic purpose that the designer had for certain mechanics, and I want to stay true to that while just shaving off things that drag just a little long.
It's interesting, guys. I don't know if you know this, but Michael, you're sitting here with a bunch of film buffs. Jay and Daryl go to like multiple TIFF events and all that kind of stuff, Toronto International Film Festival and whatnot. And Jay and Daryl, I don't know if you know anything about Michael's acting resume, but he's actually you went to school for film, didn't you?
I do. I have a degree in motion picture production. Yeah.
Right. So
we'll talk offline.
That's why the analogy works.
You're talking a language. I'm like, yeah.
So Frank, let's bring this back to R&R and how you guys do your evaluation process. I know for one of our games that was with you or is with you that we don't know what the title is yet.
I think we're getting close to the title.
Oh, good.
But
Let us know.
It's still not there. Yeah, it's still not. It's a real toss-up with that one because we have to position it correctly. It's you know that it's mainly a children's game, but I see it as more of a family game. So I don't want it to be misconstrued, and I want that name to be really perfect for that game.
Right.
Because if we go one way, it could kill the game. If we go another way, it could really help the game. We haven't pinned that down yet. We haven't pinned down your artwork yet either, which is our biggest stumbling block.
Yeah.
Packaging for our games is so important.
Yeah, for sure.
It can literally hurt a really good game if we get the packaging wrong. And believe me, we've done it in the past where I put something out and I thought that packaging just isn't really going to do it justice, and it didn't.
Yeah. Well, just so you know, I came up with the Caffeine Rush name, so you can write me in on it for like a little bit of percentage there. So maybe I can come up with another name for that game too. How does your evaluation process go? Because I know you put it through kind of the ringer.
We do. We have an extensive testing procedure. The main testing for us runs every year, starting in March and goes all the way to July.
Wow.
And we literally, and that means that it's going from group to group to group. All different age ranges, all different types of players, and we get a lot of feedback. And we basically boil it down into a number, and that number decides whether that game will get published. Those are the games where I'm not sure, where I think, this is a really cool game, but I don't know if it's going to sell that well, and I don't know what the reaction of people is going to be for this one, but we're going to test it. Some games, and with Caffeine Rush, it was kind of a no-brainer. I'm like, I know exactly where I can sell this game. This is going to be pretty easy for us to put together. So I wasn't too concerned at that point, and we just kind of threw it right in. In your case, Jay and Sen, your game, I really liked the game, and I think it will sell well. But like I said, it had to go through the testing, and I had to be sure, and thankfully it came out with the numbers that we needed. But I'm telling you, getting the artwork and the packaging is going to be really important. there's a lot of things we could add into that game. There's a lot of we could keep it very simple. I mean, and we're exploring all of that. But it's still, it's in the queue hopefully for the end of next year. So
Excellent.
yeah.
Well, oh, sorry, Jay.
Yeah, just basically, so this feedback that you get from all these playtesters in various groups and whatnot,
Yeah.
you have a formalized process for that, like an actual form they fill out and grade certain things?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Can you actually share, like, if there's certain things they grade, what are the things they grade? Not on our game, just in general. Like, what are they're grading the fun factor? Or?
Yeah, they're looking at a whole range of things. There's obviously the fun factor, but there's also, we look to see, well, what's the value of this game to them? Who do they think is going to play this game? What fun facts did they love? What were the fun factors of this game that they really loved? What did they not like? What do they think could be make it better, make it worse? Where are the flaws? There's so many questions that we cross into, because we want to know everything we can about the potential of that game. It's well worth it, because for the most part, we've had quite a success story with a lot of our games. It's not 100% by any means. There's always one of those, one or two of those that we send in there like, it's close enough. Let's try it. Let's see how it does. I think it'll do all right, and it doesn't do that well. So, you can't predict everything, but you can certainly kind of pinpoint where and how good it can do.
Absolutely. I just put a note to myself that I need to submit games to you in February, so that's your sweet spot for evaluating, right? So, on that note, like, Michael, what are some better times in the cycle? I know we have designers watching, and they're curious. When are good times to get you games so that you have the time in your pipeline of games to evaluate and start looking ahead? I noticed you posted, a big projection of all the games that are coming out soon with Gamelyn, and I'm curious, when is there going to be time for new games? So when is a good time for you?
Well, I'm going to say that there's not anything in place that's going to give people a predictable time, really. So I don't really have a season per se. It's just going to be one of those things where just shoot me an email anytime, and what I recommend actually is pull out your cell phone and shoot just a real quick little explanation of the game that if you can submit a game to me with a short little cell phone video of how to play it real quick, that makes it so much easier on me to view that and make a quick decision, or at least kind of see if it's got some elements that I'm liking. It's one of those things, right, where it correlates with the buyers too, where you don't want barriers, right? You want to make the process as smooth and as easy on the recipient as possible. And so think about that as a designer when you submit to the publisher. How can I make this so freaking easy on the publisher to get what I'm putting out? And I think videos, especially, your cell phone, your iPhone, whatever, that's nice quality. People, I've said this to designers, and they're like, oh, I don't have the equipment, or I don't have any expertise in this, or you're just creating barriers for yourself that eventually immobilize you. Just get over all of that. I don't care if it's not a good video. You're not using this as your Kickstarter video. It just gives me a good idea to check out your game. So for me, it's not so much about the season, but just more about how easy you make it on me.
I would have to say, though, if you're going to send me a video, I'm expecting a soundtrack and a plot.
In a paid cameo.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go to your actual designs. So Frank, you've done work on Masters of Venice, as we showed before, Overthrown, and Homestretch. When you're designing a game that you guys pretty much know you're going to publish anyways because it's yours, how do you factor that kind of stuff in to the evaluation process? Are you as critical with your stuff as you are with other people's stuff, or do you just kind of say, hey, it's my company, I'm going to publish it anyways? What do you think, Frank?
Masters of Venice took 3 years before I said it could be published.
Wow.
I want a game to be as perfect as it can be, and honestly, I think I could have done better on Masters of Venice. I could have found ways, I think, to shorten the game. It's if you don't know how to play that game, it can be a little bit long because there's a little bit of a learning process. But once you know it, it's pretty fast. And I never got past that fact that it's fast and it's perfect. But I think there's always room for improvement on almost any game, except for Time's Up is perfect. So, but I don't get to put a lot of my designs through because I don't have time to do them all. I mean, I have plenty of designs sitting up on the shelf over there, and I haven't finished them because I just don't have the time. So they really do go through a bit of a process. It's not as rigorous, perhaps, because I already have an idea of what I know it will do and what it can do. It's not a big risk for the inventor because I could care less whether it goes well or not. If it went well, great. If it didn't, oh well, there's another game down the drain. But it doesn't hurt the inventor because it was me anyway. So, whereas if it's an outside inventor, I want them to have a fantastic experience. I want them to sell lots and lots of games, make lots of money with us. So we really want it to be the best thing it can be. It really depends also on the products. I mean, a lot of the products I choose right off the bat and know that I'm going to do them, it's because I can instantly see, I know how to sell this, I know it will sell, and it's a quick and easy explanation. It's a no-brainer. I buy it on the spot. Everything else, if I'm not sure, it's going to go through testing. And it doesn't matter whether it's my design or anyone's design. It has to go through some testing.
Fair enough.
That's awesome.
Cool.
I just wanted to say that, Frank, you make a really great point when you say that I know how to sell this game, because that really plays so much into it, right? And so you see certain publishers, and they have a certain niche that they kind of explore with their products, and that's because they know how to sell that. So if you can put a game that kind of matches what they're doing, then that's already a tip of the hat to their talent and their interests because they know how to sell it, and so that really, really helps. So line up your submissions with like publishers.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great question. I'm going to follow up actually with you, Michael, because I don't actually know the games that you've designed. Could you tell us a little bit about the games you personally designed and what were your inspirations for those games?
I'll just talk about the ones that I've published. I've got a bunch that are shelved, but Rise, being the first game, is a two-player abstract strategy. This one is tile laying. It's really neat. It's got a little bit of an area control element, and then it's got like kind of a close tit for tat back and forth. This one was inspired off. I mean, around that time, I was playing a lot of chess, and so for me, this one is about kind of a true opposition game, no luck element at all, and really about positioning and predicting what your opponent's going to do and setting yourself up to take advantage of that opportunity. So that one plays real quick. It's a small box game, and then I followed that one up with Dungeon Heroes, which is a 1 to 2 player game with a little mini expansion out for it. This one is an asymmetrical game. As a matter of fact, it actually a lot of people also kind of see it as an abstract strategy, just in terms of how the mechanics of the game itself function. Obviously, it's got a lot of dungeon theme to it, so that's not really a true statement in the regular definition of abstract, but it feels that way. And this one it was really inspired by a kind of a Dungeons and Dragons thing where one person is a dungeon lord, one person is a hero party. Some of the inspiration of this one came off of MMOs where, if you're going to a big raid and you have to have your party, each member serves their own purpose, right? You've got your tank, you've got your DPS, you've got your crowd control, you've got your healer, right? And so in Dungeon Heroes, the idea is that a single player controls all 4 heroes and uses their very limited, very specific abilities synergistically to overcome the puzzle that the Dungeon Lord is creating for them.
Those sound really good. I'm gonna have to look those up. That sounds really good. So I'll pass it to Jay. Jay, you got a follow-up question with Frank?
Yeah, well, as a publisher, you go through different phases. So you go through the phase of finding the game that you want to publish. Okay, so then you get that game, and you sign the contract, whatever. And then you go through the whole phase of the art and developing and getting it all done. And I want to talk about the phase of distribution. How does R&R get their game out to as many places as possible? How do you get into like mass market even? Because I see some R&R games getting into that. How have you done that? How has that grown over the years?
No, technically, we don't really sell to the mass market that much. We've always focused in specialty and online.
Okay.
I think the biggest kind of chain you'll see us in might be Barnes and Noble, that kind of thing. I mean, do we sell to the big box stores online? Absolutely, but you won't find us on the shelves of Walmart or
I see.
anything like that.
Is that on purpose, or are you trying to get in, or?
No, it's mainly for many years we never really bothered with it. It was just seemed like a big hassle to us, and we were doing really well with our specialty sales. But as we get bigger and bigger, we've always said, at some point we're going to have to do that, and we've been entertaining thoughts of getting in those stores. So it might happen, but our focus has always been getting it out to the consumers and getting the consumers interested in going to their local game store to get their games. And we consider kind of Barnes & Noble, kind of like your local bookstore, because there really aren't any bookstores of note, at least around me, other than Barnes & Noble now. But the distribution, I mean, we use every distribution channel we have available to us, and we're going to just get the games out every which way we can. But like I said, it's us out there pushing those games that really gets those games moving.
And so because you've been around for a long time, is it do the distributors now just say, a new R&R game? Yeah, of course, we'll carry it. Or do you have to pitch it to them to carry it?
No, if the store has done well with our games, they're just going to say, what's the next good game? Absolutely, I want that. The distributors just bring in whatever is new from us. So, it's not, at this point, we're a very established business. They kind of know that, if it's an R&R game, it's probably going to be a pretty good game. At least, from, the past ones that they've done well with, they have enough of a track record. But if it's a new store that's never heard of us, and there's plenty of those, they might be suspect and say, well, I never heard of R&R games, and I don't know your games, and we don't really do party games, and I'm not sure about party games. Well, we don't have just party games, So it's kind of an education. You have to kind of show them what we offer and how it can work for them, and it's selling is what it is. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Sell them on the game. We have to show them how to sell it to their, customers. And once it gets rolling, then it just grows from there.
Excellent. So, Michael, what's your process with taking games that are basically, Kickstarter hits, but might be very small blips in terms of distribution? How do you get your games into distribution?
So right now I use GameSalute's distribution service, and so GameSalute functions on many different platforms. One of which is a fulfillment distribution warehousing service. So and it's kind of a la carte, and so I take advantage of those services, and then they have connections and through the distribution channels. I believe their primary one is through ACD. So right now, that's the avenue that I have to get my games out, and they're doing very well for me.
Cool. Well, I'm going to actually change gears a little bit because I'm noticing we only have 5 minutes left. The time is flying by, and many of our viewers are designers. So just to focus again back on the fact that you're both designers, I'm curious, Frank, are you working on any designs right now?
Ooh. Absolutely. I mean, I've got.
Tell us a little bit about them.
Oh, it's I have so many games that pop out of my head, and I do most of my work, believe it or not, on airplanes.
No, I believe it.
Shows, yeah, and I just start, putting them together and testing it out in my head, and eventually I'll get it prototyped, and I'll play it and figure out what went wrong, and go back to the drawing board several times, and they're just, they're works in progress, and I wish I had all the time in the world to devote to them and knock them out, but, I have to do it piecemeal, and as ideas strike, I play.
That's interesting. And Mike,
I can guarantee they're all Euro strategy style games.
Oh, interesting.
Nice.
Looking forward to that. And Michael, am I correct in assuming that your Gamelyn Games currently is a one-man show, or is there multiple people show?
It's a one-man show.
Yeah. So does that leave you any time left to focus on any of your own designs, or are you primarily just being a publisher from that for a while?
Primarily just a publisher. I definitely have a lot of passion for design, but it's fulfilling how much creativity I get to express just through the publishing process, and enough to really satisfy that itch for design. So I've stepped away from designing, and I've just taken submissions from other talented authors like yourselves.
Excellent. So, Frank, if you could leave with one hint, the biggest hint you could give a new designer in terms of what's going to help them the most in this business, what's the one thing you would tell them?
Don't give up. You know, the idea that you have may, at the core, be a great game. You may have put too much stuff around it, and you may want to go back to that core and just distill your game down to the fun factor that you started with, because the simplest games often do the best.
100%.
Absolutely. Well, and I'll kind of rephrase the question for Michael here. Traditionally, and we're winding down, so we usually ask each of our guests, one tip. I'm curious because maybe we have publishers watching or things like that, and we don't often have publishers on the show. What would be a tip that you would give to maybe the startup, the publisher, or someone who's making their first game? Would you give a tip for someone watching trying to, wear that publisher hat?
Honestly, it's the same thing that Frank said, man. It's just don't give up, and that's for everything you do in life. Some people, they'll ask me, okay, what if you could summarize in one sentence or one thing, what it is that you are, that you do. I would just say that I'm a passionate problem solver. Tom Hopkins, in his Master of Selling, talks about the professional problem solver, the PPS. And I consider myself the exact same thing. So it's just a matter of not getting overwhelmed by needing to know what that. Okay, so let me. You've got this big picture, right? And you want to get to the end. You want to get this big picture, and there's a very complicated road. And a lot of people, they'll wait and they'll study that road until they've got it completely figured out, until they're very comfortable, and that's when they're willing to get started. And the truth of the matter is that once you've taken the first couple of steps, the rest is so organic, you cannot predict that. And so don't get so hung up on needing to get it all figured out that it immobilizes you. Just start going, encounter what the problems are, and then start solving them.
Wow, that's great. Well, this has been an awesome episode. So to finally wrap it up, Frank, what's the big game everybody should be buying for Christmas?
Oh, obviously Spike, for sure. And Spellcap.
Okay. Perfect.
So 2 new releases, yeah.
All right, we'll be on the lookout for those. And Michael, you have a busy month ahead of you in January with the launch of your third and probably dominating Kickstarter campaign with Tiny Epic Galaxies. You want to care to give a quick little plug about what makes this different from the other two?
Oh, Tiny Epic Galaxies is magnificent. It's a dice rolling game, but the real thing in this one is the combo creation element. Back when you were playing Street Fighter or whatever, and you put together this awesome combo, and it's so rewarding, right? That emotion, that feeling comes out in Tiny Epic Galaxies by when you're colonizing these planets and stringing their abilities together with how you take your actions. And when you piece that all together just right, you can create these huge combos that nobody was expecting, and it's glorious.
All right. When does this kick off, the Kickstarter?
January 8th. And I want to see it all on day one. Day one is so important.
It is.
Excellent. Well, we really appreciate both of you being on the show. Thank you so much. We will be filming our after show, and as people know, we'll post that on Friday for anyone who's interested in seeing the after discussion. I can't believe how fast the time went by. Also, a highlight for next week, we're focusing on contests, so board game contests, and we're going to actually have 3 guests on the show that are our previous board game contest winners. We have both Katie and Jessica, who won the Collapse card contest. We're really excited about them being on the show. And then we also have Paul Saxberg, who won Falcon, and actually his game is Coven, which is on Kickstarter right now. And so we're really looking forward to chatting with them and talking about, is it worth putting your game into a board game contest? What are the perks? Why is that worth our while? So thank you so much for watching. Keep making great games, and hopefully we'll get to talk about your game soon. Have a great night.